Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. BEKTEMIR MELIKUZIEV scores an 8th-round technical decision win over Pierre Dibombe of France. I have to say, going in, I knew absolutely nothing about Pierre Dibombe, other than that he was undefeated. He's got 22 wins, well, one defeat now, and a draw early on in his career. And before this fight, I looked at his box rec and I didn't see anyone really, who sprang out. I mean, there were a couple of mildly memorable names or familiar names. Derek Findlay, who must be about in his 40s now, I would have thought. A great journeyman who's lost God knows how many now, but that was a name that I recognised, but I didn't recognise anyone else. And I think Dibombe, although he beat Findlay in the US, I think he had a fight in Canada, and the rest were, if not all of them, certainly most of them, were in France. So he was very much unheralded despite his undefeated record. He's 32 years old, orthodox fighter. Melikuziev coming in with 13 wins, 10 KOs, 1 defeat, which was to Gabe Rosado, which was avenged by wide decision. He got knocked out actually in 3 rounds back in 2021. He was beating Rosado, got him into a corner, and then Rosado countered with a brilliant punch and knocked him out. But he did win almost all the rounds in the rematch. Rematch was only 2 fights ago, actually. 2023, about a year ago. Since then, he beat Atlanta's Fox, stopped him in 4 rounds, and he was expected to deal with Dibombe pretty easily, but it didn't go that way. Dibombe, kind of a quite muscle-bound. I mean, he's ripped, poor balance, frequently knocked off balance by punches that didn't even land. He took him on the gloves, he got knocked off balance, and his footwork was a bit shoddy, but his hands were pretty good. He was firing counters, very sharp, straight counters, as Melikuziev came in. And Melikuziev, since being knocked out by Rosado, is slightly more conservative in his attacks. He's not nearly as reckless, although you can't reinvent the wheel. He's clearly a guy who likes to go forward and fight on the front foot, and nothing wrong with that, of course, as long as you do it intelligently. But clearly the Frenchman had done his homework, because Dibombe was, like I say, was countering really well. But in the first round, there was a clash of heads. The styles, as both guys were sort of roughly the same height, they both moving forwards, or even when he was countering. I mean, Dibombe, he was countering quite aggressively. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't sort of popping the guy lightly and then backing off. It was really putting some weight in and falling in. And there was a clash of heads, and Dibombe came out of that clash with a sort of slice along his right eye. And it was the blood was going into his eye. Look, they tried to contain it. They couldn't really. It continually bled. And that that kind of put Dibombe off his game a little bit. You could tell it was bugging him a bit, the eye. He was trying to ignore it. He fought quite well for the first 4 or 5 rounds, but then he started to look a little bit his body language wasn't great. It's almost like he wasn't being quite as confident and quite as proactive as he had been earlier on in the fight, until there was another clash of heads, and this time it was Melikuziev who came away with an even worse cut. I think it was over his left eye. Again, Dibombe's was across the eyelid. Melikuziev's was, I think it was it was wide. It wasn't just deep. I mean, it bled continuously, so it must have been quite deep, but it was the width of it. It was like a rip, big, like his eye had been ripped open. And the doctor took a look at both guys' injuries and let them continue. And I thought from rounds sort of 6, 7, and including the 8th when the fight was stopped, Dibombe had a look of a guy who was either not confident enough or didn't have the self-belief, or maybe didn't have the energy left to really be to fire enough punches, to fire punches that seemed to sort of suggest he was going to win. There was a lack of belief there, and Melikuziev was sort of picking him off, and he was punching first and usually last, and you could tell Dibombe was still looking for the counters, but they weren't quite as sharp or as accurate or as there was just a lack of belief in the guy. And anyway, in the 8th round, Melikuziev was pulled over to the corner again. The doctor had a look at the cut and waved the fight off. They included the 8th round on the scorecards, and it was a unanimous decision to Melikuziev. Now, I've always thought Melikuziev was overrated. I really do. I still think he's overrated. He's very physically strong. He was out muscling Dibombe, who himself looked quite physically strong. And I think Melikuziev hits hard, but I don't buy into the idea that he is this, tremendous killer who's going to smash through the division. I think that's pretty. These are super middleweights, by the way. No, I don't buy it. I don't think there's enough variety there. He does hit quite hard, but he's not. Is he a one-punch killer? Would you say he's a one-punch knockout artist? I don't know about that. He's also quite stocky, quite short for the weight, 5'9", I think. There's something missing. I think it's variety. I think it's imagination. Because when Dibombe in this fight was beginning to lose heart a little bit and slip into survival mode, you would expect, perhaps you would think, if Melikuziev's going to be a leading light in this division, that he would go through the gears and get Dibombe out of there. But it was more a case of Dibombe's confidence waning rather than Melikuziev, forcing it out of him. It was almost like Dibombe, maybe because of the cut, maybe because he wasn't used to going all those rounds, I don't know, but he sort of lost a bit of heart, lost a bit of self-belief. And Melikuziev, that was an opportunity for Melikuziev to jump on him, but I don't think he really did. It didn't look to me like he could go through the gears much. And don't forget, Dibombe, although he was counter-punching, was still like I said earlier, quite an aggressive counter-puncher, and you would have thought that would have suited Melikuziev. Like I say, Dibombe had done his own work because he was looking to ping the right hand over the top, and he was doing it early on in the fight. Catch Melikuziev as he was coming in. It was pretty obvious what Dibombe was trying to do, and Melikuziev couldn't adjust to prevent that. Again, it was more a case of Dibombe, Dibombe sort of just fading away rather than Melikuziev forcing him out. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It was a technical decision in 8 rounds for Melikuziev. I'm not convinced by him at all. I know he's a big cheese in Uzbekistan, and fair enough. He's only 28. He's got plenty of time. It's not. But do I see him as being the future of the super middleweight division? No, I don't really. I don't think so. I think when he meets someone with a lot of skills, a good chin and a good gas tank, they'll outbox him and outpoint him quite easily. And if he meets someone who's got serious punching power, David Morrell would kill this guy. Munguia would. I think I'd pick Munguia to beat him as well. Canelo certainly would beat him. He's good, but he's not. He doesn't convince me a great deal, to be honest with you. So, what do you think? Do you agree with me or do you disagree? As usual, please leave your comments below. What's your opinion on Melikuziev? What's your opinion on this fight? It was on the undercard. I think it was a chief support for Haney versus Garcia. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the subscribe button. It takes a second, costs you nothing. Please do that. And also hit the like button as well, because they count the likes, so I'm told. Anyway, thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen. I will catch you later, and bye for now.